Fingers crossed.
Says we're live.
Oh my goodness, I think maybe we did it. All right, I'm gonna record as well. So here we go, we are starting. Can you see comments on your end?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so we'll figure this out as we go. At least we're live. So guys, I don't think I can see any of your comments, but we're live. So welcome and good morning. Welcome to Braveheart Conversations. This is episode 44. And I'm Jillian Aurora. I'm here with my co-host today, Marie Wallace. And
hi, everybody.
She is on vacay right now, visiting her daughter. So we are not together, but we are together on Zoom. So I'm really grateful that we were able to make this happen. And I just want to say thank you to all of our listeners, wherever you're listening from. If you are joining us on Facebook, we go live every week on Thursdays. You can join us in our group, which is facebook.com/groups/Braveheart Conversations. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. So I welcome you to join us from whatever platform works for you. And I thank you so much for being here. This morning, we are going to be talking about blending families. This was a request that was made by one of our listeners. And I think it's a fabulous topic. It's not something that I think of a ton because I don't have children, but this is a topic that I can speak to from personal experience. I came from a blended family and was adopted by my stepfather. So I'm excited to get into that a little bit. I also think that this is an area of expertise for Marie because she did blend families and she did that very successfully and very well. So Marie, I want to hear from you, your thoughts about blending families as we start this topic.
I'm super excited about this, mostly because I think that we're, just starting from the beginning. It's really scary, especially if you come from a background like I did, where the blended family didn't work so well. So I was super conscious and worked super hard to create something that would be, it's not an easy task by any means, but it can be done. And I think the main aspects that we came from is working together as a team. So when you're building a team, when you're building a community, it's the same kind of guidelines. It's giving, it's sharing power. There's a whole lot of things that go into it. So I'm really excited to dig in and give you some things to. So when you're creating a team, you think of you have to have rules to play by so everyone knows how to navigate. The reason you share power is so that everyone knows who the leaders are, and it has to be a co-leading thing, whether you have his children, her children, their children together. I think it's really, really important that everyone has the same rules to go by and that everyone operates from those. And we act as coaches, and that we're all on the same team. I think sometimes the reason it didn't work before in my family of growing up, not everybody was working together on the same team. And then some other guidelines I want to talk a little bit about is ways to connect and family meetings where everyone has a voice. So I'm super excited to talk about this because I feel like I do know this topic really inside and out, what works and what doesn't work. So yeah.
Well, Marie, I'm just going to kind of bring up some questions that I know come up either from my coaching clients or just hearing things. Things that pop up in my head are like, what about disciplinary differences. So sometimes you have one parent that they lean more on the discipline side, keeping things structured, accountability, and then you can have more of a parenting style that is more accommodating, a little bit more compromising, passive. How do you see parents coming from those different backgrounds being able to blend in a way where the parents aren't conflicting and they aren't making each other bad and wrong?
Yeah, wow. That's probably the deepest dive ever. Um,
Sorry, that's me.
jump right in. Well, it goes a little bit along with what we talked about last week, is having those rules to go by. So the first thing is the parents have to get together and figure out what the rules of blending this family could be. Not, they won't be stringent, but it's like, how do we navigate this together, and then be able to monitor and adjust as we go along, knowing it's going to be a difficult process because we do have different parenting styles. And so what we usually do is, like I said, sit down, and there is one parent that's always a little bit stronger than the other. And what we agree to do is that in the moment, so we both have to have the same ability to discipline the way we do, and we don't usurp the other person. So what that means is, if I make a decision, then my partner backs me up. That's where the teamwork comes along, right? It's not like I think that's wrong, and it doesn't mean we can't go back and fix that or adjust it later. It's supporting your partner while it's happening. So while it's happening, if I make a decision, my partner's going to back me up on that. Backing up just a little bit, usually I won't make a decision. I make a decision in my area of expertise. So it's using all of our gifts and talents. So if it's usually something to do with major discipline or relationships, I was the one who made the major decisions. If it was financial or something like that. So that's where we share the power. Whoever has the most expertise or knowledge in that particular thing, then we would go with their decision. But when you're in the moment, you have to make the best decision that you can and not allow the kids to come in between us, because that's where I think it went wrong before. It's your kids and my kids, and, playing favoritism, and that's where it gets really tricky and a little bit ugly. And so I just think the main thing is finding ways to blend ourselves together as a team. So we make sure we do connecting activities, ways that we can start seeing our commonalities as a family, as a new family, so that we can start thinking of all the win-win situations. It's just like we would in coaching. It's just family dynamics. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Totally. Yeah. I would only add a few things to that from my perspective too, is the more that we have check-ins, I like to call them relationship check-ins. Like it could be weekly, it could be bi-weekly, but just like regular structured communication. We often wait to have conflicts, healthy conflicts, until it's an emergency and it's something that like has to be talked about. And imagine running your finances that way or a business that way. Like it wouldn't work.
Nope.
You really need to sit down and create intentions, right? You make intentional decisions, not based on urgency and emergency, but based on goal setting and like, I want to steer my business in this way. And so I really wholeheartedly believe that a lot of relationships dissolve because we don't give it the same intention and love and thought as we do other elements of our lives that we think are serious. And so I really am an advocate of check-ins. And one of the elements of having a check-in, there's a couple things that I recommend. Number one, like ever is Braving, Brene Brown's Anatomy of Trust. So it's a trust check-in. How are we doing with trust? And I won't go into all of the elements, but the first two are really key. The first one is boundaries. Am I speaking what I want and need. Like, do you understand? Have I communicated that? And are we respecting each other's boundaries? And then the second one is reliability. Am I following through with what I said I was going to do? And so those two are really, really key in dealing with family dynamics. Trust is really imperative that we have
Yeah,
that foundation before we can parent together. So that's,
we had
I mean,
oops, sorry.
oh,
We
you're
had
good.
family meetings, which is the same as check-in. And at first, our family hated it. They were like, oh, do we have to do this? But what it allows is everyone to have a voice. And like you said, is everyone having that opportunity to speak into the circle what they need, what they want, and we can check as parents, are your needs being met as children, and are our needs being met as parents? But the children could put what they needed on the list just as much as we could, and they could, it gives them an opportunity to have a voice in the matter. Like, you know what, I understand why you have this rule, and it also just gives people a chance to be respectful with each other. So we would practice active listening, and it's a safe environment to handle what we talked about last week was the conflict. When our family has conflict and they know how to handle that in this safe bubble, the element of trust is so important. When they start to get that they can trust this situation and this bubble, then they feel more open to use their voice and ask
Yeah.
for what they want and need. And so I'm so glad you brought it up. I like check-ins, but we call them family meetings just so, and like I said, at first they're like, oh, do we really have to do this? And after a while, they're like, I understand. It also just gives us a chance to connect as a family and do some things fun together and play and enjoy each other. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I love the family meeting idea. I've had clients that have done a combination where they'll have a parent check-in and then a family check-in. I really
Yeah,
like,
you have to have that too.
yeah, in a lot of families, it's really typical for kids to balk against chores and rules and all the things. So one of the things I really like to encourage is active problem solving together. I think we all kind of balk against just instructions, but if we can frame it in a way that, like, oh, here's, as a family, we have this list of things that needs to get done in order to have a clean and orderly space, in order to, have meals, all the things. So here's the list of things that we need to do. And what do you propose as the solution? What do you propose we do about this? And then getting their buy-in instead of just telling them, this is what you're doing. So anyway, that could be for a blended or non-blended family, but that's really important, I think, for kids, especially as they're getting older, like getting their buy-in, getting them to do some problem solving instead of doing it all for them.
And finding out what their currency is, working with their currency. So some of the kids will want more time. Some of the kids will want maybe a prize. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but each person has, just like the love
Totally.
languages, right? We all have our own way of buying into whatever that is. It goes back to the team concept that we were talking about earlier, is that
Yeah.
we do have to work together as a team to get this done so that our space does feel orderly. And we do, when they get to be teenagers, it gets a little bit harder, but there is still ways to navigate and negotiate everything. It's just really tapping into knowing our kids, knowing our family, knowing how our family works, and building from that so that you do know what their buy-in is.
Yeah, yeah, I think that that's huge. I do want to go back to just some of the other things that comes up specifically with blending families. So I know, like, in my world, what was really tough, I was the oldest of six,
Me
but
too.
but we were blended. So I have one biological sister, and then I have four siblings that three of them are from my adopted dad. So I was adopted, and then my biological sister was adopted as well. And then I had a foster brother. So we definitely had all the blending. And my biological father left when I was 6. He was a drug addict and life was just really messy for him. And I'm grateful in a lot of ways that he did kind of just exit my life for a while. And that was probably a good thing because I wasn't really around for a lot of the damage that he did to himself. And I was able to reconnect with him later. But what was difficult for me was when my mom did remarry a year later. um, I didn't want to call my stepdad dad. And for a while that was allowed, but then it was eventually, no, we're a family unit. We're all going to act like a family unit. Um, and there was a little bit of an illusion. It felt like an illusion, like this is your real family. And so I think sometimes it's natural to want to make your blended family the real family, but there's a little bit of pretending and illusion that can take place that I think can be harmful. It's okay to acknowledge the past and to acknowledge this is our family today, but then it hasn't always been this way.
Yeah.
And you do have another parental figure or whatever your particular situation is. It's okay to acknowledge that. I think far too often we put those things in the closet and we make them secrets and we make them kind of taboo to talk about. And I think that that can be really damaging. It's sending a lot of mixed messages to the kiddos.
I think that's a perfect thing that you brought up, and I'm really glad that you did. It's acknowledging what is, right? What is that we are creating something new. And I never did ask my bonus. I call her my bonus daughter too, because there's too many stories about step families. And she calls me her bonus mom. It wasn't always that beautiful. We did work and navigate through that. And what I told her from the very beginning, and we gave each other rings and promises when Joe and I got married, that I would never ask her to call me mom. I would never I'm not replacing her mom or anything. I'm an added bonus to the family so that there's another guide on the side to help navigate through this world. So I'm an additional parental figure. And it's not an illusion. It probably feels like an illusion for the kids, especially in the beginning, because their world is rocked and they don't know it. But that's where I feel that we work on creating something new together. So this nucleus of the way we work and operate is going to look different than when they operate in other areas. So it's just bonus families, if you want to think of it that way. But this is how this nucleus works. And I also think the important part is to build new traditions together, new ways of being together, so that you can say, yes, this is something new and different. So creating traditions together, creating activities that we normally do together creates a little bit more normalcy for them, so that when they do go to someone else, they go, okay, this is how I act in this situation, which does prepare them for the real world, because they're going to be in lots of different situations when they get elsewhere. So when they go to their other family, and we're all family. And so we did try to do activities with the other family too, to show that we're more of a community. That's not always easy, and it's not always ideal for every situation, but you try to create as much normalcy as possible, which goes back to what we were talking about in the very beginning. We have to intentionally create this, and we have to make sure that everyone gets a voice in it and everyone gets to intentionally create it with us, so that there is buy-in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's important to talk about too, divorce and the dynamics that happen. You know, we're not just usually talking about one blended family, we're also talking about the family that they're going to every other week or whatever the situation is. And this is something I can speak to as a mediator, where I see a lot of these divisions happen and the common issues that come up. So as a parent who is co-parenting with someone outside of your home, and then you have another, step parent inside the home, like the dynamics, there's a lot to handle there. And what I really will see a lot of is you saw the other co-parent in a specific role for your whole marriage. Maybe that was, generally the situation is the guy was the breadwinner, he was the one, creating the bulk of the money, and the woman is saying, well, I had the bulk of the relationships with the kids, I did the homework, I did the legwork for meals and laundry and all those things. And so our perception can kind of get warped by, well, you weren't ever with the kids, so therefore I have more of a right to them. And how are they even going to function, because you don't know how to do laundry and you don't know how to cook the meals? And then vice versa, well, I'm the one who's able to fund them going to the school activities or the blah blah blah. So this is the common headbutting that I see. And the opportunity that we have when we walk through divorce is, yeah, there's some scary elements for sure. We get to see the other co-parent in their weaknesses, because yeah, you have some gaps. There's some strength building that gets to happen on both sides. But the thing is, you've only known them in that role for the duration of your marriage. And so now, as a woman, if that role resonated for you, where they were the primary breadwinner, you now get the opportunity to really step into a creative role where you are creating the income and you are becoming more of a financial foundation for your kids. So you get to step into that role. You can, and you will, when the need is there, like, you will do it. It will happen. I've watched it over and over. And on the other side, you get to trust that the other parent, your ex-husband, is also going to be able to step it up. He's going to learn how to do laundry and cook some meals. They may not be the same meals as you, but he's going to improve. He is going to build relationships with the kids that he didn't have to before. So those things will either happen or he will fall away. That's what I've seen in these scenarios over and over. And where it can really become damaging is if we are so entrenched in our past experience with what that partner, who they were and what they were able to do, that we aren't able to let them grow and expand into their next version and into whatever is going to happen for them. So we get to be more curious instead of judgmental. So we're future focused. We're letting go of what happened in the past and allowing them to create something new. I do want to talk about a little bit of a caveat, because I do understand that there are plenty of women who are leaving relationships because of abuse. And kids can be used as pawns, and it can be a very manipulative game. And so I'm giving you that information about letting your co-parent expand, while also understanding that you may be dealing with some other elements, and I don't want to downplay that. So you get to navigate what your role is in keeping you safe. And it is hard when you've got some of those other elements, because sometimes, the law is still saying, like, they get 50-50, they still get access to their kids, and they do, and you still get to let them expand, because just because somebody has an abuse problem doesn't mean that they aren't also on their journey of learning. So do your best to keep your kids safe, keep yourself safe. If you need to have a third party in your communication, any of those elements, like, do all that you need to do for your own self-advocacy, but also have a curious mind and let them expand. They chose this path for a reason. They chose these kids for a reason. They chose this relationship.
It chose us for a reason.
Yeah, they really did. So,
well, we're all on that journey of learning and growing. And I'm glad that you brought that up, as far as trusting that they will grow into that, because there's this old paradigm of because that happened in our relationship, well, women automatically know how to deal with kids. And I remember, um, you know, that he broke his leg, and he's like, well, you know how to deal with the kids. I don't know how to, but the circumstances called for that I would be working and that he would be mending and healing. And all of a sudden he's put in a situation where he must learn about the kids and must learn how to deal with them. And he did a beautiful job of that. And so I think that
he
it
broke
is
his leg.
and he's, well, you know how to deal with the kids. I don't know, something's
how to.
happening. So,
But the
okay. Oh, that was weird. Anyway, it echoed back to me.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, that was weird. But anyway, it worked out really beautiful because then they got to expand in their gifts, and it was hard because they were more naturally inclined to deal with more grown kids, and so babies were kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do. But you learn, and you, like you said, be curious. And I have to let go of control and say, it's for the highest good, and we all work it out together. It's not pie in the sky or anything. It's just, it is what it is. And holding on to the past and someone's past way of being it doesn't serve anyone. And
Right.
if we want someone to accept our growth and learning, then that's something that we get to do for other people. So that works in all situations, right?
Yeah. I want to say just a little bit about that step parent role, or that bonus parent role. So I know when I was married and I had a couple of step kids, that was a really difficult path for me to navigate, because in my mind, they have two parents already, right? And so I feel like I played more of a friend role. They were teenagers and older kids, so that was a little bit different than if they had been young kids. But I just want to hear what your thoughts are when you are playing in that step parent role. Are you stepping in as a parent? Are you seeing yourself more as a secondary parent and allowing the other parent to make the decisions? What is your take on that role?
I think each family is going to be different, but I think that's something I would navigate with my partner, because if I don't have, going back, I know it sounds weird to say the word power, but if I don't have the authority and responsibility, I mean, because I definitely have the responsibility of those children until they're 18, because we're in the house together. It's our house together. If I don't have any say in way things are, then that's where I think the conflict comes, and more screaming, yelling, anger comes out, because again, voices aren't being heard, neither the teenager nor the bonus parent, right? So there has to be some kind of authority in there that we are given, and that can be negotiated and navigated through. Like, we're not going to make a decision until the other parent comes home, but in an immediate situation, I have the authority, or whomever's in charge in that. So there are ways to navigate that. It gets a little bit tricky. It might be that you need a third party to come to some kind of resolution. However, it's just super important that you're still working together as a team. And I think if at any point I'm not allowed to discipline or have any say in how things are going in the family, we're not working together, and that it doesn't work. That's been my experience, because I've worked with other couples that way too. And it's just my experience that if we're not on some kind of page that says this is, and goes back to your rules of engagement from the very beginning. How are we going to do this? What are our intentions for this family? What is my role? How do you perceive my role? Can we find a way to come to common ground in the middle? So that's what I would say to that one.
Those are such important questions to have that conversation before you ever get married or step into that situation. Be really clear. I am so clarity of boundaries, whether it's with kids or without kids. Like, know what
Yep.
you want Number one thing ever, like know what you want, know your desires. And so what I would encourage you to do is put down on a piece of paper, when I envision a step parent, what does that look like? Like the
Yep.
best step parent ever, what does that look like? And then have your partner do that and see what the differences are, because you're going to flesh out a lot of conflict if you're able to do that. Like, oh, this is your perception of what a perfect step parent is, and this is my perception of what a perfect step parent is. And if they don't match, like, you got some things to just discuss and work out. What are the decisions that you're able to make about those kids? Also, you know, this can be hard if you're in a household together. You may say, well, I don't really want a lot of say in the discipline or the parenting, but I also maybe don't want video games going on in my living room, right? Maybe
Yep.
that's not really a parenting issue, but it makes me uncomfortable. You know, so those are the sorts of things that you get to have those conversations. Going back to the check-ins, like make sure you're having these conversations before they are full-blown conflicts and like
Before
problems.
you commit to something so grand, because it's a big undertaking to blend a family. I've
Mhm.
seen families get to that point and say, I don't think it's going to work because the differences were so huge. And
Yep.
you have to honor that they're creating this because they're honoring the children in this aspect too. And I think it's going to whatever the win-wins are. The other thing I want to say is sometimes you have to treat it as focusing on the things that are important, because sometimes we're messing with the small stuff and
Yeah.
and we're not focusing on the things that really matter and are important. So what is it, something that I can let go of in order to accomplish the greater good? And having a family of support and sustainability will really help this child thrive, right? And so I want to do whatever I can to what that's the best for the kids. I think having that focus, I mean, our relationship is so important, and it's as strong as our teamwork is. Um, if that can't happen, it might be something that we have to think about.
Yeah, for sure. I like yeah, going back to being clear about what you want. Those are really your standards and like your non-negotiables. So it's very, very important to communicate those things in the beginning before you're up
Yes.
against those decisions going, oh shit, because it impacts the
Yeah, you don't
kids.
want to get there. Yeah, too late.
Yeah. Because if you have those discussions before you get into a household together, and you realize, oh, it's not going to work before you get into the household together, imagine all of the grief you're saving the kids, right? So,
Yeah.
very, very important to be clear, be intentional. Don't just let things happen and unfold and then get surprises.
On the
Surprises.
positive side, there's so many beautiful things. Think about having more family. There are some really great things about having a blended family. You have different perspectives and different viewpoints. You learn how to navigate the world in different ways. You're open to more possibilities, I believe, because you are going through different experiences, and it can be really beautiful creating traditions and fun things together. There are ways that can really be a beautiful thing. And so I just want you to know it, even though it seems scary as hell, you, there are some really beautiful things in that. So
Yeah. Well, and I imagine like all of the things that I got having grown up in a blended family, you know, I have more siblings and I love all of them. And they do feel like they're not any different than my birth sister. They're all my siblings.
yep.
And it's a little strange. Like we just had Father's Day and I got 3 Father's Day cards, you know. It's a new world, but I'm really grateful for the family that I have, and they all have a distinct special place in my heart, and we all have unique relationships. So being someone that got through the process, like I don't think that I'm worse off for it. I'm glad that my path was what it was. And remember, your kids are resilient. That's important. Remember, your kids are resilient. And a lot of shame and guilt is heavy in a lot of parents' lives. I see it all the time. They think that they're not doing a good enough job. And I just want you to know you have not made a single mistake in your entire life. They have all been divine choices. They are all going to play a role in your child's life that is going to create mastery and learning. Even though I had some trauma, I had some grief in my childhood, all of that was a gift for me, and it helped me create the person that I am today, and the passion and the purpose that I have on this planet, being a catalyst of healing in other people's lives, would not have happened if all of those things way back then didn't happen. So I want you to stop owning anywhere that you think you've done something bad and wrong because you've gone through a divorce, because you had a partner who was not good to your children, because you're in a marriage now that there's things that are tricky, the blended family thing. Like, don't own anything that is in your mind telling you that you're bad and wrong for the choices you've made. They are going to be okay. Not only are they going to be okay, but all of those things were divine interventions for your children, not to your children. They didn't happen to your children. They happened for your children. Just like life happens for you, it also
Yes.
happens for your children. So I just feel really strongly to make that point because there's so much shame that I see around parenting. So anyway, there's my soapbox. I'll get off
There
of
we
it.
go. We did awesome today. There we go.
Yeah, we did.
You are
Okay.
awesome parents. I mean, it's not an easy task. So
No, it's not. Okay, I am able to see some questions. I do see one question. Let me see if we can address this. Any advice for blended families dealing with making safe decisions about how to comply with some public health issues? In some parts of the country, some day maps and nanny camps are opening up, and these require strict adherence to a health directive to help keep kids and caregivers of essential workers safe. I'm hearing parents having to trust two sets of parents to comply with some hard stuff. For me, what comes up is there's a lot of ways that we are having to rely on other people's decisions that don't line up with ours. And I'm actually really excited about this because coronavirus and all the things happening in the world right now are really just accentuating things that already existed. We were already dealing with ripple effects from everybody else's behavior. And the thing is, we don't agree with a lot of it. So I'm impacted by other people's decisions. They're impacted by mine. And what I get to do is I get to release any judgment of good and bad. So we have this perception that wearing a mask is good or bad, or
yes.
whatever the thing of the day is. We have perceptions that things are really good or really bad. And we've made everybody else who doesn't agree with us wrong. And here's what you get to hear. We all get to hear this. I perceive it as bad and wrong if I miss a flight. But with the divine timing and divine coordination, that could have been the best thing. That could have saved me from an accident. It could have saved me from something horrible that happened, that was going to happen when I got there. We don't know what's good and bad. So I want you to hear that we don't know what the ripple effects are going to be. We've all dealt with some pretty painful things in our lives. But the thing is, even a parent who dealt with addiction, I had some positive ripple effects from that. Even though I dealt with horrible codependency and I was in abusive relationships and all sorts of horrible things, horrible, right? Those things that we perceive as bad,
we're all doing the best we can.
Yeah, there were miracles that happened. So with all of the stuff that's happening, and I know you're having to trust co-parents that you don't feel are trustworthy and you feel like they're making terrible decisions, what I would encourage you to do is see that there is a higher power operating above whatever your co-parent is doing, whatever your ex is doing. There is a higher power, there is a higher source operating above whatever they can do. And what I want you to hear today is that no matter how much I try or you try, I can't change what the divine purpose for my life is. There is no mistake I can make. There is no choice I can make or somebody else can make that can destroy that. So I want you to really lean into that today, is that you can't fuck it up. They can't fuck it up. So yes, there are people that are going to make decisions that you don't agree with, and your ex is going to make decisions that are going to feel like, oh my God, what are they doing? Protect yourself the best you can. You know, your intuition is going to guide you. So if you feel, you know, you need to make a certain decision, do it. But other than that, you know, try to release any judgment you have towards how things are going to be. Did I cover that well enough, Marie?
I think you did perfectly. Yeah,
Okay.
there's lots of things that are not in our control, and we just roll with it and trust.
Unfortunately, yeah.
All right. Thank
Okay,
you
well,
so much.
yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you all for joining us today. This was a lovely conversation. And if you have any other questions, we always encourage our members to let us know what you'd like to hear about next. So if you want to send us some comments on this video, or if you want to just send us a message in our group, you can join discussions there as well. But we'd love to hear from you with potential topics or questions or challenges that you may have. You can email me specifically at defytheaverage@gmail.com, and you can contact Marie.
Marie@mariesgold.com. We love questions. We love, yeah, if you have any kind of question or any kind of need clarification. So yeah, let us know.
Yeah, for sure. And please join us again next week. Again, our Facebook group is facebook.com/group/Braveheart Conversations. And with that, we love you, and we will see you again next week.
Looking forward to it. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.